And we have three speakers who will contribute to the plenary. Jemiama Tiatia-Seath, Eliza Puna, and Leina Masters. They represent a cross-section of talent from a range of levels, from masters, PhD, and teacher. So we're getting true kind of engagement at all levels of the research spectrum here. So if we could welcome our speakers to the podium, one of them to start with, presumably, we will be underway. Thank you.
So today we will be canvassing the journeys of three Pacific women researchers throughout their academic careers. The perspectives of an undergraduate researcher, a postgraduate researcher, and a Pacific academic will all be presented as snapshots of the Pacific research experience. The three stories will showcase how Pacific research has the power to impact policy, practice, and Pacific ways forward. Malole soifua o loo ingo o Leina Masters au te sau mai lunuu o Papauta I Apia, as well as Raglan and Hamilton in New Zealand. I'm a medical student here at the University of Auckland. I've just finished my honours year in medical sciences. Next year I'll begin my clinical attachment at Middlemore Hospital. Medicine is one of the longest undergraduate programs at the University of Auckland. We spend 6 years cramming, learning, studying and testing ourselves so that when we finally graduate we can be the best doctors for our communities. I was given the extraordinary privilege of also undertaking research throughout the past 4 years of my study, and it has been revolutionary for my learning. I believe that being an undergraduate researcher gives me skills that are very important for becoming a good doctor. So engaging in research as an undergraduate student helps me connect with my Pacific culture while I'm in university. It gives me the opportunity to contribute to something important while I study, and it teaches me skills that will make me a better doctor for my Pacific patients. Now, during my medical degree, we rarely discussed Pacific health. And if it did come up in lectures, Pacific peoples were often reduced to a statistic. We had the highest obesity and diabetes levels, or we had poor rates of adherence to medications, and we lived in socioeconomic deprivation. Then, at the end of my second year, I met with a Pacific health lecturer out at Tamaki campus, and her name was Dr. Jemiama Tiatia-Seath. She wanted a student to complete a summer studentship for her on the topic of Pacific mental wellbeing. Now, this summer studentship opened me up to a whole new world of academia that I had never encountered before, and that was Pacific research. I learned about how Pacific research methodologies and how they influence literature. I learned about Pacific health initiatives that use Pacific ways of thinking to heal Pacific peoples. And I also learned about my place in New Zealand as a mixed ethnic Pacific young person. Engaging in research as an undergraduate helped me connect more with my Pacific culture while I studied a degree that didn't focus on Pacific voices and values. My summer studentship opened up many new opportunities. I wrote a literature review, which was published as an article in the New Zealand Medical Student Journal. I presented at the Royal Australia and New Zealand Psychiatry Conference and at the Pacific Region Indigenous Doctors Conference. Importantly, Pacific research sparked my interest in the topic of Pacific youth mental wellbeing. I knew I wanted to contribute to this budding field, so this year I took a year from my medical degree to complete an honours degree in medical sciences. Now, as an undergraduate, you spend a lot of time reading other people's work. This was a unique opportunity to write the work myself and to contribute my voice to the conversation. I was supported by my wonderful supervisors, Dr. Tuila Percival and Dr. Jemiama Tiatia-Seath, as well as the Pacific Health Department and the Pacific Studies Department. So the theme of the NZIPR Conference is Oceans and Islands. This serves as a pertinent metaphor for research. By contributing to the field of Pacific youth mental wellbeing, I felt like I was a drop of water in the Pacific Ocean. While I may have contributed only a small part to the body of literature, it is our collective contributions that make up the power of Pacific research. As undergraduates, oftentimes we feel as though we cannot contribute anything important to the vast oceans that are our areas of study. Engaging in research as an undergraduate gives us the opportunity to contribute to knowledge that we care about. Engaging in Pacific research has given me opportunities and skills that will make me a better doctor in the future. Of course, an understanding of research means that I can evaluate scientific evidence and give the best clinically proven treatment for my patients. But an understanding of Pacific research gives many more benefits. In a polycultural city like Auckland, understanding Pacific research means I'm more empathetic to my Pacific patients and have a better understanding of the possible treatments that work best for them, not for me as their physician. Engaging in Pacific research has also connected me to many other Pacific academics, researchers, doctors, and agencies in New Zealand. Last year, I was lucky enough to be funded by an HRC Pacific Summer Studentship, which opened doors for my honours project. This year, I attended the Pacifica Medical Association Conference, and I heard about the amazing work that some of our Pacific medical practitioners are up to. These benefits of undergraduate research are not specific to my medical degree. Pacific students from all faculties will reap the rewards when they engage with research. I've been so incredibly lucky to have been given these opportunities. I know that when given such opportunities, Pacific students will deliver amazing results and live up to their potential. One such student is Eliza Puna. She has been a trailblazer in the area of Cook Islands youth, positive mental wellbeing and suicide prevention.
Kia ora ana tātou kātou toi te rā. Ai ko Eliza Puna tōku ingo, no Awaiki Nui, also known as Cook Islands. Mai au, no ai te taki e maniki mai tōku papaanga e tōku kōpū tangata. E no ana ki Rarotonga, e pērā ia Tāmaki Makaurau. Warm Pacific greetings, and thank you, Leina, for that very generous introduction. Like Leina's experience, through undergrad, I can relate. Literally, as someone who just pretty much rocked out of the islands and arrived into Tāmaki Makaurau, we had this notion that, yeah, I'm from the Pacific, I know a lot, but I was proven wrong. And in this journey from when I started university and to where I am today, I've learned to privilege what I've known and what I've attained throughout my years here at university. Yeah. Privileging this information has helped me carve out my space in this world, in the grand scheme of things, especially within the research world. So postgraduate research, basically for me, provides one with an opportunity to carve out one space in a field that they are interested in. So moving from the undergraduate level where you'll get taught things to now practicing what you, to now carving out your own space in this world. It also, research gives you an opportunity to carry out very ethnic-specific research. And it allows, for me, I have found that very ethnic-specific research allows for more in-depth engagement and helps to actually build bridges between academia and also our communities, of which we want to help. Lastly, it opens up networks, platforms, and opportunities for myself to contribute back to my community and also to the world. And in all this whole journey, it gives me time to reflect upon my space in this world, especially in this vast ocean of the Pacific. So like many journeys, it starts with a single step. For me, the research journey started here with MAPAS. Some of you may know of MAPAS. MAPAS is the Māori and Pacific's admission scheme here at the University of Auckland, and it was my initial launching pad into the university life and my health science degree. During my degree, we learned so much about health systems, and you hear issues about our Pacific populations. And it's not until towards the end of my degree, my health science degree, that I was actually fortunate enough to stumble upon some opportunities. And like Leina, I did some Health Research Council summer studentships. And that was a great time for me to not only be supported, because hello, you're a broke student when you're at uni, but also dip my toes into the waters of research. And, you know, just test it out and see where I fit in this whole research area. Moreover, having a Pacific and Māori cohort from when I started the Certificate of Health Science program right up until postgrad, there was this critical cohort that actually moved along with me. So there was this collective learning that was happening within university. And yeah, so it was great to have a sense of grounding and also be reinforced by your peers that are Pacific. Through such undertakings, interest grew around areas that I felt was an opportunity for me to test out as a student researcher. Hence why it is important to engage our Pacific students and emerging researchers during undergraduate studies, as this allows them to reinforce what they learn, more so to dispel any preconceived ideas of what postgraduate study is all about, and better prepare one for their journey in postgraduate research. Moreover, finding the right mentors within your field of interest, learning more about Pacific research methodologies, and then during my journey, learning a bit more about what literature is actually available out there for actual Cook Islanders, especially around mental health, mental well-being, and suicide prevention. That initially caught my interest, but it also showed how massive of a challenge it is for me to start contributing to this space that is that we know little about. And it can be at times kind of like lonely because you're like the only other Cook Islander. But I have to say, all the other Pacific cultures like Samoa and Tongan research methodologies have helped reinforce my identity, but at the same time understand how we can frame issues within our communities with a Pacific framework. Anyways, during such time, I also completed a master's thesis which examined positive mental well-being and suicide prevention, especially amongst our New Zealand-born Cook Islands young people. This was my initial exposure into what master's topic and potential PhD research that I would want to continue on to. And so with my current research, I look at now island-born Cook Islands young people. So similar to Leina's talk, a lot of language, especially around Pacific people, centered on issues and deficit kind of language. With my work, I attempted to change that from looking at problem-focused research to the solutions. And I believe strongly that it's within our own communities. So it was solution-focused and also strength-based. As part of my master's work, I managed to publish a journal article from this work. Having completed this journal article fills a substantial gap in our Cook Islands research on mental well-being and suicide prevention. And also it encourages us to build toward more evidence-based information, evidence-based informed initiatives and strategies. Choosing to be very ethnic specific was very meaningful, and it was only right that I helped contribute to this space. When you look over literature, it's very limited for Cook Islands, and the existing literature that is there doesn't really tend to encapsulate the evolving realities that we have for Cook Islands young people and communities, wherever you may find them. So this opened up a whole new discussion and quest to understanding Cook Islands mental health, mental well-being, and suicide prevention amongst our Cook Islanders here in New Zealand and also back at home. By privileging our young people's voices, we actually, research gives a voice for our young people who sometimes we tend to overlook in terms of the solutions that can be brought about because of their voices. So we see with a lot of the issues that we face that there needs to be a Cook Island voice at every level of society, and not just at governance level or grassroots, but also groups that actually stand out in our society. I'm not sure how many of you were here for the pe'e this morning, the traditional chant. But part of that chant goes, Pupu'i ki te niu, raranga ki te waka, tiranga ki te karakia. Loosely translated, Pupu'i ki te niu means look up to the coconut trees. This is the wisdom of our ancestors. Look up to the coconut trees. In essence, that means look up to God, seek spiritual guidance. And I don't think Western literature kind of captures, the spiritual aspect of our Cook Islands worldviews around that, or Pacific. Pupu'i ki te niu, raranga ki te waka. Raranga ki te waka means take out the problems, ask the community for guidance and counsel around the issues that we are facing. Because for example, suicide prevention, one of the biggest barriers to help seeking for our young Cook Islands young people and also Pacific is not being able to talk about it because there are no safe spaces for that. So being able to raranga ki te waka, take it out to the community and have that communal conversation only enhances the ability for us to find solutions within our own communities. And so with that collective discussion, tiranga ki te karakia, we can all uplift that. And then you will see that the waves of the challenges that we see will dissipate over time, like the waves do. So learning our Pacific models of health and mental health helps us understand by privileging our own ethnic-specific understandings of issues, contextualizes and puts things into perspective for certain ethnic groups. So lastly, in our respective research fields, networks are such an important thing to have. So like these conferences, networking is so important because in essence, that's how we learn from each other. And I've been privileged through postgraduate research to be able to not only network with those here in New Zealand and back at home, but also worldwide. And we get to learn off each other. So research provides us the platform, especially for myself, to engage in my community around issues that are meaningful and in large, kind of devastating in our community. I think that in time, my contribution paves the way for more work to be done for our youth, to have a voice, and also for parents to understand the evolving realities for our Cook Islands youth and Pacific youth. And more so, above all of that, prioritizing and relooking at our Indigenous knowledges, especially Cook Islands, because a lot of wisdom is stored within that. So lastly, translating ideas into simple speak or simple words is as important as being able to write and speak academically. Privileging my reo Māori fulfills our desire to shift our paradigms of thinking from that of Papa'a, Western, to that of Māori, ko tātou. It is my hope that this research adds value to the well-being and also the vitality of our Cook Islands people, wherever you may find them. And this can also inform through to policy and practice. So I'm going to introduce our last speaker. That's my little spiel. Introduce our last speaker. We originally had her as a seasoned pro on our slides, but she found out and she was like, nope, change that. It's none other than Dr. Jemiama Tiatia-Seath, who may not be a stranger to most of you, but to us, she is our mentor and our role model, and who has been, if you are not up to date with the news, have been part of the mental health inquiry team here in New Zealand. It's a huge undertaking, but a very timely one for our people. Having the likes of such an esteemed person to share this keynote speech with, and having her at the back of our canoes as the steerer through our research and our And our time here at university speaks volumes of the kind of person that we want in a leadership role and that we hope to aspire to. So me te maata, me te tupaka, and I'll pass it on to Jemiama.
Okay. Malo le soifua, malo le lei, malo ni, whakaloflai atu, pula. Warmest Pacific greetings. I shan't keep you too long because it's getting hot and everyone's probably ready to hit the wines. So I'm currently co-head of school, Te Wānanga o Waipapa, School of Māori Studies and Pacific Studies, and head of discipline, head of Pacific Studies. And I'm here to talk about from research to policy. I didn't think these two would get up and say the things that they did, and they always blow me away. I think our students just blow me away randomly with things like that, and it just makes every day for me so much special, so much more special. Anyway, so I guess over the last 2 decades, my areas of interest in teaching and research have been around mental health and well-being, and suicide prevention and suicide postvention. So suicide postvention, that being supporting those families or those impacted by a suicide, supporting them through the healing and grieving process, because at least on average 60 people are directly affected by a suicide death of someone close to them. So you can just imagine how exacerbated the mental well-being of our families are and communities are when they're left behind to try and pick up the pieces after a death. This is such a powerful image to me because, and I have permission to use it, this is a mother, and that was the suicide note that her son had left. And so she tattooed it on her wrist and carries him with her every day. And it's stories like this that completely humble me, I guess, and completely enable me to be empowered and transform spaces where there is little movement to move, where there is little, I guess, elbow movement for Pacific peoples especially. So that's me, and I'm still here after going through this, 10 months of this. It was completely harrowing. There were 6 of us on this government mental health and addiction panel, and we're here talking with the chief science advisors. So there were lots of people that were involved that helped us to compile a 200-page report, which I am so glad we have handed over now. We received something like 2,500 submissions, written, online, engaged with over 400 stakeholders. This is all in a 10-month period, and met with over 2,000 people at like 26 public hearings. So the engagement was meaningful, and it was exactly what our remit required of us to do, and that was to go out and listen to the people. Now, as much as I thought I was a suicide and suicide postvention expert, it's not until I went out into the country and I thought, I know nothing. I know absolutely nothing. Because you were dealing with the likes of synthetics, which is becoming so readily available in our backyards, alcohol, and how that's becoming, New Zealand is a culture around alcohol, and we sometimes celebrate that, and how that is impacting upon families, which then leads to domestic violence, sexual violence, and we're seeing younger people engaging in that type of risk-taking behaviour. You're seeing young mothers that aren't supported, and families. I can so talk about this now because it's done to a point. And I'll talk about some of the issues later on without revealing too much, I guess, from the report. But we handed it over, and you can see in this report the diversity. I think that's a powerful message, in that brown faces are actually the majority in a governance type of, committee, which is transformative in itself. I thought it may be quite pertinent and relevant to address climate change and amidst mental health and well-being. I don't profess to be a climate change expert. No, there's no way. But I have the likes of Associate Professor Yvonne Underhill-Sem and Professor Alistair Woodward, who are, experts in that area. And I guess the nexus is to explore how our Pacific peoples, who will be, there will be an influx, I'd say, in New Zealand and Australia in response to rising sea levels. So then how is New Zealand going to be equipped to deal with this population that comes in, who are distressed about employability, who are having to fit into a new culture, adapt, all those issues. And I feel that as a country we need to be readily prepared for that. So you heard from two of these stars. I think the most buzzy thing about this is that this is their first keynote ever. And I'd like to thank the organisers for giving them and the opportunity to do so, because it's these opportunities that we need to seize, because they don't come around too often, but when they do, you take it. Believe me, the anxiety levels are up here. They were stressing me out, pacing up and down the hall. But the point is, it's done. And the point is, I knew there'd be students in here who would see that and be completely inspired. And the fact that we're all wahine, that's just a bonus. So Alyssa, she's looking at suicide prevention. We have Caleb Masters, also Palmerston, and he is looking at the elite sports kind of area, and how, I guess, if you're a Pacific male, having to perform day in and day out, and having your family rely on you financially, and the dream, just some of the pressures that can impact upon a young male's mental health and well-being, I guess. Then we have Therese, who is, I guess, merging spirituality or images of God by Pacific young women, and how that impacts upon mental well-being. And Sarah McLean, who worked with service providers, and she looked at, I guess this is around developing a construct for service providers and their delivery, so those that have diagnosed young Samoan females around depression. Joanna Minster, who talks about multi-ethnicity and cultural resilience. Leina, who you've heard about, anxiety and depression. Pacific people have the highest anxiety and depression rates in this country. So it's something to be very mindful of. So in a coconut shell, through all our work and all our students, and students I haven't named here because there's so many, but I acknowledge you all. They're sitting right there giving me the daggers. I guess these are some of the key messages that I feel are absolutely important, not just in the health space or the mental health and well-being space, but across all sectors, whether that's justice, education, and what have you. So achieving equity. I'm in the space I am to try and do my bit to reduce the gap. Not inequalities, because that just assumes everyone starts on the same starting line, but in equity. So, and how we go about achieving that. That panel was a start because we had gender representation and, of course, an ethnic mix and sexual orientation and different backgrounds. We had tangata whenua. It's the right way to go. You may have seen in the news already the government's announcement around the DHBs and the 21-member panel, and just there's an outcry, and that the majority of that committee is both clinical and white, which does not reflect what this country is all about. So being mindful about achieving equity in those types of spaces. There needs to be clear mental health and wellbeing leadership. This is a start with our postgraduate students. It's being able to be in positions of influence and governance, being a leader in your church group, being a leader in the community, wherever that is, ensuring that our voice is heard at every single table that we can get our hands on, whether you're invited or not. Because it's not about me, it's not about us, it's about our people, and it's about improving the benefits and the outcome, whatever that may be. Cultural competency, we were talking about this, I'm Samoan, doesn't make me culturally competent when dealing with a new wen, for instance. So we need to also check as Pacific peoples how culturally competent we are in whatever service that we're providing. And that also is for non-Pacific. There are sometimes, I believe, or as an academic, here's an example, leading a Tongan study, a suicide study, I knew that I had to stand back because I'm not Tongan and just allow Tongans to completely drive or paddle that waka. But giving my expertise in and around that. So having, I guess, the strength to know that you don't have to be a principal investigator on every single grant that you go for, and sharing that load. Workforce development, again, the students are a great example because you've always got to have a succession plan. And with that succession plan brings new innovation and new thinking. You've got to keep it fresh all the time. And so workforce development is then ensuring that whatever vocation we are in, that at least we are having our epistemologies, our Pacific ways of doing and knowing in amongst that, and informing whatever mahi that we are doing. Institutional racism, I can freely say that now. If I was asked to say that 10 years ago, I would have just been a bit hesitant, but it is what it is. This is one, I guess, societal ill, that tends to put a lid on our containers as Pacific. And once we admit this and we start to dismantle it, you'll just see a whole new world and a thriving, culturally safe and relevant environment. Curriculum development. Pacific ways of knowing, doing, walking, talking, breathing should be in every module, in every faculty, because that's our growing population at the moment. And mental health and mental well-being is not just a health. It's not just a health responsibility. It completely underlies each and every one of our lives. And suicide prevention and postvention. That's not where we want to be, right? Until we address all those things prior, then we won't need to be addressing, trying to keep our young people alive. So, yes, I think that's all I have to say. And are we doing question time, or is that it? Okay, so if you would like to ask these two some questions, you're more than welcome. Thank you for listening.
I think that's a great way to finish a program today on Pacific research, to have reflections from people at so many different levels, so many different experiences. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions. Anybody want to start the first one? Okay, I'll start. You're going to start? Two of you mentioned the HRC summer studentship. HRC funded summer studentship. So, I know nothing about these. Are these made available every year to staff to actually apply for, to work with students, or for students to apply for? How do you get them?
Yes, so the Health Research Council has these career development awards for Māori and Pacific. And they have a summer studentship program, which is about 10 weeks. Then you can progress into a master's scholarship and a PhD scholarship. You get funded for 3 years, and a postdoc, which you can get funded for up to 4 years. I guess the Health Research Council's got it right in terms of workforce development in the Pacific research area. So if there are any funders here, that's a great formula and it completely works.
How many people have done all steps? Because you're talking there of about 7 years or 8 years as a possibility if you take it through to a postdoc.
I'm one of them. Yeah, totally great. But I came in kind of later. I came into the no, it's you. You would be the one that. Do you want to? You went through all the stages.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, so I started towards the end of my health science degree, as I mentioned before. And that was a way of seeing what I would be interested in terms of what postgraduate diploma I wanted to attain. And so HRC provides you that opportunity to apply. Also, at the same time, the networking allows you to start getting in contact with academics that are within that field. And then I think when I started this journey with Jemiama, it was from a HRC summer studentship, got published in the newsletter, and then she got in contact, and the rest is history. We did another summer studentship just to test out what our focus would be for my master's, and then it went progressed into master's, and then from there, PhD. So I'm currently towards the end of my PhD, and it's been quite the journey. I'm glad to have been supported in that way.
Oh, that's a very interesting set of supports, as you say, something that really allows you to build something. Very few agencies invest like that in so many stages of a journey. Yeah. Can I ask just one small question, Leina, of your own experience in the 6-year training program, or longer, because you put another year in, I think you said. At the University of Auckland in the medical school, do they give you the option to do an elective outside of New Zealand?
Yes, at the end of your 6th year you can take up to 6 weeks to practice medicine in another country, and that can include the Pacific Islands.
Did you do that?
No, I'm not in my 6th year yet.
Oh, you're not there?
I could, maybe.
No, I'm just wondering if I have heard that that's a possibility and how it's a real opportunity to get another level of understanding about the level of health provision and support in different places. Yeah, good. Who else has got some questions? Yeah.
Kia ora, Ms. Puna. I just have a question about your journal article there where defining positive mental well-being for New Zealand-born Cook Islands youth. And I was just wondering if you also looked at Cook Islands youth in romantic relationships, and if you saw a difference in how they articulate their mental well-being and how they redefine it or anything, you're not comparing with Cook Islands-born ones, but if you saw if there was any difference.
Thanks for your question. So in my PhD, there is some sort of comparative component with the master's study that I did and also what I'm doing currently. And to an extent, there is a slight difference. But so with the island-born lot mainly, because the students that I had, or actually the participants that I had in my master's weren't really in that many. Most of them were actually single, and living at home, because the age range was from 16 to 24. So you still tend to see a lot of our young Pacifics still living at home. Yeah, but I mean, there is a potential that they might not be telling us everything. But with our island-born, a lot of the young people that were from the outer islands, not from Rarotonga, were more in romantic relationships that those were in Rarotonga. And you do tend to see a lot of young couples that might not be exclusive out there in the community, but a lot of our outer island Cook Islanders tend to have a different view of mental well-being in comparison to those that are not in relationships in Rarotonga. That's because a lot of them have to leave their families and move over to Rarotonga and tend to find partners and then tend to live with them rather than with their actual families. In a sense, they found that even though that they were in relationships and isolated from their families in the outer islands, that they still were able to utilize those relationships that they had as a way to validate their well-being and also their mental well-being and support them in that aspect. Yeah. Sorry, that was so long. But we can have more discussions over that question. Thanks.
Yep, one over here and then one over there. This is the fittest man in the university.
Hello, me te mata to you all. Thank you, that was great to hear. I wondered if, this is to all three of you, if you could comment a little bit more or talk a little bit more about how, what you think about mentoring. I know you spoke a lot about how important Jemima has been to you, but I wonder if you have any more thoughts about how important it is for us as young Pacific students to continue a legacy of mentoring. I know in my experience I've had a lot of Pacific women especially, Māori women especially, hold doors open for me in my journey, and I wondered if you had any broader thoughts about that in terms of Pacific research in general and how important it is that we try and foster that.
I think that's a really good question. My response would be that mentoring often not only opens doors, but it connects you to more people who might have the same interests as you or who might be able to support you in ways that people that you knew when you first started university couldn't. For a personal anecdote, I grew up in Hamilton where there's like 4 Pacific people, and then coming to Auckland there were way more, and so it was really cool to connect with all these other students and met students who were in the older years, and then they were mentors, and definitely Alyssa and Jemima are mentors for me too, and they've connected me to lots of other people and of course opened doors. So I think I agree with you, mentoring is super important just from my perspective.
I would 100% agree with that too. I think when I started my postgraduate journey, sorry Emma. So when I started postgraduate, I was just getting to know a lot more people, especially within the suicide prevention and mental well-being space. And it was initially, I felt that it was just me and Jemima at first. And then over time, we had more students come through, and her mentoring of me there's that ripple effect that had happened. So I ended up mentoring Caleb and some other students, and they end up mentoring the other ones coming through. So yeah, we've got this whole mentoring thing, and I can't, rave enough about how important mentoring is, especially for our Pacific peoples, because we know that relationships matter, and we do not want our students to be alone in their journeys, because it can be isolating, and institutions like this can become isolating, especially if you're in a department that there's no other brown face there with you. So keeping those connections going and the relationships that we have, not only with our academic staff, but also with each other, is important towards fostering relationships and making sure that everybody is mentally okay. Yeah.
In terms of, I'm still getting mentored. I'll still get mentored to the day I die, really. My grandmother continues to be still my mentor with that cultural stuff and the spiritual stuff. In terms of academic kind of progression, I have a Sri Lankan mentor, Professor Shanti Amaratunga, and Janet Farnslow, who's Canadian. I hope she's Canadian, she'll kill me if she's... It's also not relying on your own. It's going outside your comfort zones. Gender too. It's bringing everyone in the va'a with you, because you can only get to your destination if you have the right people in the right place paddling along with you. What they look like is completely irrelevant. It's what they bring in terms of their wisdom, in terms of their spirit and character. So you've got to keep an eye too out for those that have kind of selfish agendas, because we are a collective and we look after each other.
A lot of wisdom there. There was one question.
My question is for everybody. It's about the role of Pacific languages and language learning in the schema you've presented. Could you speak to that?
So Maima's reminding me that Cook Islands is available here at University of Auckland next year, semester 2, and I'll be your tutor and lecturer and, dragging you along on the va'a. Sorry, it was around languages, right, and research? Yeah, so I think, so from the research that I did in Masters, there was this general, this theme came through quite strongly, that mental well-being is also knowing your language. And I didn't really understand the gravity of that until later on. And now that I'm teaching Cook Islands Māori, I see a deeper understanding and appreciation of wisdom from our ancestors to us that's been already in place, that we're finally connecting onto and finally understanding a lot of the wisdom in that. And I guess that's also part of the whole decolonizing of our understandings of things that happen within our communities. There's a lot that's said about mental health literacy, what might be said in the literature might not necessarily be how we interpret mental health and mental well-being. So the language, brings about that fuller understanding and also extent of knowing how we can source solutions and how we can build relationships between generations. And we find, especially for a lot of young Cook Islanders, there's that big disconnect between them and their grandparents. And I think that's a testament also for other Pacific cultures. And the language, it was funny because I was talking to one of my students who completed Cook Islands, and she said that her mum was so proud of her because she was able to connect with her the people that had come from the Cooks over for this sports athletics thing happening down in Dunedin. And she was able to get up and express who she was and tell everybody who she was. So in a sense, it helps build relationships and also our understandings of things that might have been in the past, like, things that happened to our grandparents, knowing their stories better and seeing that, they've gone through stress and problems, that they can also get through those times as much as you in your current setting. Yeah. Did you two want to add?
Yeah, I do want to add. Just on that note, the more connected a young person is to their culture, their identity and their language, the more likely they'll thrive and the more likely they'll be at decreased risk of anxiety, depression and suicide. So I think language is not only just core to who we are as Pacific, it's actually core to our existence. So here at Pacific Studies, we encourage our students and our staff to come into the whale because it's our cultural reference point, in amongst a concrete jungle. And here is where you feel belonging and you just feel a part of something. You can't explain it, eh? There's just a connection, so that's important. No more now.
Yep, I've got that one.
Hi. Firstly, thank you so much. Some wonderful presentations and well worth the pacing before you got up to the lectern. Bringing it back to the title of the presentations, Young, Female and Brown, the audience that you've got here is quite receptive and supportive. I'm wondering, outside of this kind of a setting, how the three of you go being young, female and brown, and getting that legitimacy from academia where, stale pale males still dominate.
So my response to that, and I think that's a really cool question, is that this year there were 19 students who did the medical honours program. One of them was Māori and 2 of them were Pacific, and I did mine on Pacific Health, and the other Māori girl did hers on Māori Health. So that was a very small percentage of us who were sort of talking about Indigenous or, minority ethnic discussions, and the university were really receptive to it and really positive about it and were keen to learn more. So I think that for the faculty that I'm in, Faculty of Medical and Health Sciences, thanks to programs like MAPAS, they're becoming more and more receptive and interested in Pacific Health and Māori Health as well. So I feel like hopefully the tide is turning and that everyone's opinions and voices will be cherished.
Yeah, that's an awesome question. Thanks. I told them to take young out of the title because I'm fully not young. It's actually been a really tough journey, particularly as a Pacific brown woman in so many spaces, even within our own culture. We could be seen as little, cheeky upstarts. And it was so important for me then to have very, very strong women around me, which gave me that confidence. I still sit in lots of committees where I am the minority and I still have grapples, but unless we're there, we'll have other people speaking for us. It is a daily struggle. And I think one that the university is really trying to dismantle, with, the appointment of the Pro VC Pacific is a prime example. No, you've lost me. I've lost my train of thought, sorry. But what was your term again? I've heard it. Yeah, like it.
As a pale stale male,
Sure, yeah.
probably getting close to time to draw the questions to pose, unless there's somebody who's got a really urgent one. We are supposed to have some buses out here. I'll be here though, and we do want to present our speakers with a small thank you for your excellent. Thank you all for your participation and for so many of you staying to the end of the day. I think that's always a sign that the conference is working and working well. So hopefully we'll see you all again tomorrow at 10 o'clock, and most of you we will see very shortly down at the waterfront for the function this evening. I don't know, Evelyn, if there's anything you want to add? I think we should give Evelyn and her team a really good clap for all of the work that they've done. It's been a really great event.